Let me tell you something right now, because what I am about to show you, what I am about to break down for you in the next few minutes, is something that the entire wrestling world is still reeling from, something that nobody saw coming, something that has shaken the foundations of every single promotion, every single locker room, and every single fan who thought they understood how this business works. Femi walked into the Royal Rumble, and he did not just win. He did not just survive. He walked in, he looked the Vision dead in the eyes, and he completely, utterly, devastatingly destroyed him. Not just in that ring. Not just on that night. He destroyed the Vision as a concept. He destroyed the Vision as a force. He destroyed the Vision as a man. And if you are not furious right now, if you are not confused right now, if you are not demanding answers right now, then you have not been paying attention, because what happened at the Royal Rumble was not just a wrestling moment. It was a statement. It was a war declaration. And the man who made the declaration is someone who has been circling this entire industry like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike, and that moment, ladies and gentlemen, came at the Royal Rumble, and it came at the expense of one of the most decorated, one of the most built up, one of the most protected competitors in the history of this business. Stick with me. Do not click away. Because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what happened, why it happened, who Femi really is, and why the Royal Rumble night just changed everything we thought we knew about the future of professional wrestling. Let us start from the very beginning, because context is everything when it comes to understanding a moment like this. The Vision was not just some random competitor walking into the Royal Rumble hoping to get lucky. The Vision had been carefully, meticulously, deliberately built up over the course of months and months of television, months and months of pay-per-view appearances, months and months of promos, matches, and storylines designed specifically to position him as the most dominant force in the entire landscape. Every single booking decision that had been made leading up to the Royal Rumble was pointing in one direction. Every single promo that the Vision cut was designed to remind everyone watching that he was untouchable, that he was inevitable, that he was the man who was going to walk out of the Royal Rumble as the last man standing and ride all the way to the main event of the biggest show of the year. The machine behind this man was working overtime. The writers were crafting his words. The bookers were protecting him from anyone who could possibly threaten his position. The television departments were giving him premium placement night after night. The marketing teams were plastering his face everywhere. Everything, and I mean everything, was being done to make sure that the Vision arrived at the Royal Rumble as the clear favorite, the obvious choice, the guy that every casual fan and every hardcore fan alike would have bet money on to win that match. And for a long time, that bet would have been a smart one. For a long time, that bet would have been the safest bet in the entire business. But here is the thing about professional wrestling that casual fans sometimes forget, and that even hardcore fans occasionally overlook. This business does not always go the way you expect. This business has a history, a rich and violent history, of throwing curveballs when you least expect them, of taking someone that the entire world has written off and putting them right in the middle of the biggest moment of the year. And that is exactly what happened when Femi stepped into that Royal Rumble match. Now, for those of you who have not been following Femi's journey leading up to this moment, you need to understand who this man is, because he is not someone who just appeared out of thin air. Femi had been building momentum for a considerable amount of time before the Royal Rumble. He had been cutting promos that were absolutely electric, that were delivering a level of intensity and conviction that most people in that locker room simply could not match. When Femi spoke, people listened. When Femi walked into a room, the temperature in that room changed. There was something about the way he carried himself, something about the way he looked at every single person in that locker room, that told you this was not a man who was just along for the ride. This was a man with a plan. This was a man who had been waiting, watching, calculating every single move that everyone around him was making, and who had been positioning himself very carefully, very strategically, for a moment that most people did not even realize was coming. Femi had been winning his matches. He had been making statements. He had been issuing warnings to anyone who would listen. But the thing is, most people were not listening. Most people were so focused on the Vision, so wrapped up in the narrative that had been constructed around the Vision, that they completely failed to notice the storm that was building right underneath their feet. And that storm had a name. That storm was Femi. And it was about to make landfall right in the middle of the Royal Rumble match, and when it did, it was going to wash away everything that had been built, everything that had been promised, and everything that anyone thought they knew about how this story was going to end. The Royal Rumble itself started the way most Royal Rumble matches start. You have your early entrants coming in, you have your mid-card guys trying to survive as long as they can, you have your surprise entrants getting reactions from the crowd, and you have the general chaos and unpredictability that makes the Royal Rumble one of the most exciting matches in all of professional wrestling. People were being eliminated one by one. Alliances were forming and then immediately breaking apart. The ring was filling up and then emptying out again. And through all of this, the anticipation was building, because everyone in that arena, everyone watching at home, everyone following along on social media, was waiting for the Vision to enter. And when the Vision's number finally came up, when that countdown began and the crowd collectively held its breath, the reaction was exactly what everyone had predicted it would be. The place erupted. The noise was deafening. The vision stepped through that curtain with all the confidence in the world, with all the swagger, with all the authority that a man who has been told every single day for months that he is the chosen one would naturally have. He stepped into that ring and he immediately began doing what he had been doing for months. Dominating, eliminating people with ease, throwing guys over the top rope like they weighed nothing, making it look effortless, making it look like destiny. And for a while, it was. For a while, it looked exactly like everyone had predicted it would look. The vision was in control. The vision was unstoppable. The vision was living up to every single promise that had been made about him leading into this night. And the crowd was on their feet, because they were watching what appeared to be a foregone conclusion unfolding right in front of them. But then Obafemi's number came up, and everything changed. The way Obafemi entered that Royal Rumble match was unlike anything you had seen up to that point in the night. There was no fanfare. There was no elaborate entrance with lights flashing and music blaring and a 20-second countdown to build suspense. No. Obafemi walked out from behind that curtain with nothing but silence and cold, calculated intent behind his eyes. The crowd knew who he was. The crowd had been watching him for months. The crowd understood that this man was a threat. But in that moment, in that specific context, with the vision already in the ring dominating everything and everyone in sight, most of the people watching probably thought that Obafemi was going to be just another name on a long list of men who had walked into that ring and been quickly dispatched by the vision. That is the narrative that had been set up. That is the expectation that had been cultivated. Obafemi was not supposed to be the answer to the vision. He was not the guy. He was not the one the story was building toward. He was just another competitor in a match full of competitors, and the vision was supposed to run right through him the same way he had run through everyone else. And that is where the script got completely rewritten. From the very first second that Obafemi stepped into that ring, you could feel something shift. You could feel it in the air. You could feel it in the way the crowd reacted. You could feel it in the way the vision himself looked at Obafemi. Because Obafemi did not do what everyone expected him to do. He did not cower. He did not try to hide behind other competitors. He did not try to avoid the vision and survive as long as he could by staying on the opposite side of the ring. No, Obafemi walked straight toward the vision. He walked right up to him. He looked him directly in the eyes, and in that moment, in that single, unforgettable moment, you could see it on the vision's face. For the first time in months, for the first time in this entire carefully constructed narrative, the vision looked uncertain. And that uncertainty was not something that anyone watching had seen before. That uncertainty was not something that the bookers had planned. That uncertainty was real. It was genuine. It was the look of a man who was suddenly facing something that his carefully rehearsed confidence and his carefully crafted character were not prepared to deal with. What happened next unfolded over the course of the next several minutes, and every single second of it needs to be analyzed, because every single second of it was telling a story that went far beyond what was happening in that ring. Obafemi and the vision locked up. And immediately, you could see the difference. The vision, the man who had been tossing people out of that ring like ragdolls all night, the man who had been making it look easy, the man who had been the picture of dominance, suddenly found himself being pushed back. Suddenly found himself having to fight for every single inch. Suddenly found himself facing a level of resistance that he had not encountered from anyone else in that match. And the crowd felt it. The crowd saw it. The crowd collectively realized that what they were watching was not just another elimination sequence. They were watching something different. They were watching a genuine collision of two forces that were not on the same level as anyone else in that ring. The back and forth continued. Obafemi threw strikes. The vision answered with strikes of his own. Obafemi attempted a throw. The vision blocked it. The vision attempted a throw. Obafemi blocked it. Every single move was being met with an answer. Every single attack was being countered. And through all of this, the rest of the competitors in the match were essentially forgotten. They were moving around the ring, surviving on the periphery, but the real story, the real focal point of everything that was happening, was this collision between these two men. And then it happened. The moment that everyone watching will remember for the rest of their lives. The moment that every analyst, every journalist, every fan with a social media account has been dissecting and debating for days. Obafemi found his opening. A brief, split-second window that opened up in the middle of their exchange, and Obafemi hit it with the kind of precision and power that you simply cannot teach someone. The strike landed perfectly. The timing was immaculate. And the vision went down. Not just down for a count. Not just down for a second. Down in a way that made the entire arena collectively gasp. Down in a way that made everyone watching at home sit up straight in their seats. Down in a way that told you, right then and right there, that something monumental had just occurred. But Obafemi was not done. And this is where the true destruction began. Because the vision getting hit by a devastating strike is one thing. The vision going down is one thing. Those are moments. Those are individual occurrences within a match that can be recovered from, that can be overcome, that can be written off as a temporary setback in an otherwise inevitable victory. But what Obafemi did next was not about a single moment. What Femi did next was about completely, systematically, mercilessly dismantling everything that the vision was. He followed up that initial strike with a series of moves that were absolutely relentless. Move after move after move, each one more devastating than the last, each one driving the point home more emphatically than the one before it. There was nothing random about it. There was nothing chaotic about it. It was calculated. It was methodical. It was the work of a man who had studied his opponent, who had prepared for this exact scenario, who had been waiting for this exact opportunity, and who was now seizing it with both hands and refusing to let go. Femi was not just beating the vision. He was making a statement. He was sending a message. He was telling everyone in that arena, everyone watching at home, everyone in every single locker room around the world exactly who he was and exactly what he was capable of. The vision tried to fight back. He tried to rally. He tried to dig deep and find whatever reserve of strength and willpower he could muster to turn the tide back in his favor. And you have to give the man credit for that. The vision did not quit. He did not roll out of the ring. He did not try to escape or hide or find a way to avoid what was coming. He stood up. He tried to fight. He tried to answer. But every single time he tried to mount some kind of resistance, Femi was right there to shut it down. Every single time the vision showed a flicker of the dominance that had defined his entire run leading up to this point, Femi was right there to extinguish it. And with every exchange, with every time Femi put the vision down again, with every time the crowd erupted in response to what they were witnessing, the narrative that had been so carefully constructed over so many months was being torn apart piece by piece. The vision was not unstoppable. The vision was not inevitable. The vision was not the man. Femi was proving all of that right here, right now, in front of the entire world, and there was absolutely nothing anyone could do to stop it. And then came the elimination itself. The moment that everyone has been replaying on their phones, that everyone has been screenshotting, that everyone has been sharing with their friends and family and followers. Femi lifted the vision. He lifted him with an ease that was almost terrifying, lifted him like the man weighed absolutely nothing, lifted him like the gravity itself was something that Femi had simply decided to ignore. And then he threw him over that top rope. Not gently, not carefully, not with any kind of restraint or mercy or hesitation. He threw the vision over the top rope with everything he had, with every ounce of force and fury and determination that had been building inside of him for months, and the vision hit the floor, and it was over. The man who was supposed to win the Royal Rumble, the man who was supposed to ride all the way to the biggest show of the year, the man who had been protected, pampered, and positioned as the most important person in the entire business for months on end, gone, eliminated, destroyed, by a man that most of the casual audience did not even fully understand the significance of until that very moment. Now, let us talk about what this actually means, because the immediate reaction to what happened at the Royal Rumble is only the beginning of the story. The ripple effects of what Femi did on that night are going to be felt for months, possibly years. First and foremost, you have to consider what this does to the vision's credibility. For months, the entire promotion had been investing heavily in this man. They had been telling the audience, night after night, that the vision was the guy. They had been protecting him from losses, from setbacks, from anything that could possibly diminish his status in the eyes of the fans. And now, all of that investment, all of that protection, all of that careful booking, all of it is compromised. Because the vision did not just lose at the Royal Rumble. He lost in a way that looked completely one-sided, completely dominant, completely overwhelming. He lost in a way that made him look like he was in a completely different tier than the man who eliminated him. And in professional wrestling, how you lose matters just as much as whether you win or lose. Perception is everything. Credibility is everything. And the way the vision was destroyed by Femi has fundamentally altered the way both men are perceived moving forward. The vision is going to have an uphill battle to regain the kind of momentum and legitimacy that he had before the Royal Rumble. That is just the reality of the situation. It is going to take time, it is going to take some very careful and strategic booking, and it is going to take a compelling story to rebuild the vision back to the level where he was before Femi showed up and tore it all to pieces. On the flip side, let us talk about what this does for Femi, because the answer is everything. Before the Royal Rumble, Femi was a rising star. He was someone who was getting buzz, getting attention, getting people excited. But he was not yet a main event player. He was not yet the guy that you could point to and say, this is the man who was going to headline the biggest shows in the business. He was on his way there, but he was not there yet. And then the Royal Rumble happened. And now Femi is not just a rising star. He is the star. He went into that match and he did something that nobody else on the entire roster had been able to do. He looked at the most protected, most built-up, most dominant competitor in the business and he took him apart. He dismantled him. He destroyed him on the biggest stage the business has to offer. And that kind of performance, that kind of statement, that kind of night does not just elevate someone in the rankings. It catapults them. It launches them into an entirely different stratosphere. Femi is not just relevant now. He is not just someone people are talking about now. He is someone that the entire industry has to take seriously. He is someone that every single person in that locker room is now looking at and thinking twice about. He is someone that the bookers, the writers, the executives, all of them are now scrambling to figure out how to incorporate into their biggest and most important storylines going forward. The Royal Rumble did not just give Obafemi a win. It gave him a platform. It gave him a spotlight. It gave him a moment that is going to define his career for years to come. But here is where things get really interesting, and here is where I think we need to have a deeper conversation about what is actually going on beneath the surface. Because if you take a step back and look at this situation from a bigger picture perspective, what happened at the Royal Rumble was not just about Obafemi beating the Vision. It was about a shift in power. It was about a changing of the guard that has been brewing for a long time, and that finally, came to fruition on the biggest stage in the business. For months, the Vision had been positioned as the future. He was the man that the promotion was banking on to carry the company forward. He was the investment. He was the bet. And that bet was not a bad one. The Vision has talent. The Vision has charisma. The Vision has the kind of presence that can fill arenas and sell pay-per-views. Nobody is disputing that. But the problem was that the promotion got so caught up in building the Vision, so focused on protecting him and elevating him and making him look like the most dominant force in the business, that they failed to see what was happening right underneath their feet. They failed to notice that another man was putting in the work, cutting the promos, winning the matches, and positioning himself to be the one who would ultimately dethrone the Vision when the time came. And that man was Obafemi. And now, after the Royal Rumble, it is impossible to deny that the future of this business looks very different than it did just a few weeks ago. Let us talk about the psychology of what happened, because there is a layer to this story that goes beyond the physical action that took place in that ring. Obafemi, from the very beginning of his run, has understood something that a lot of competitors in this business either do not understand or are unwilling to embrace. He understood that the way to make the biggest impact is not always to win every match. It is not always to be the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes, the way to make the biggest impact is to be patient, to watch, to wait, to let everyone else make their moves first, and then to strike at the exact moment when your strike will carry the most weight. Obafemi did exactly that in the months leading up to the Royal Rumble. He let the Vision have the spotlight. He let the Vision have the headlines. He let the Vision have all the momentum and all the build and all the attention that a man in his position would naturally receive. And while everyone else was focused entirely on the Vision, Obafemi was quietly, methodically preparing for the moment that was going to change everything. He was studying the Vision. He was understanding the Vision's weaknesses. He was building his own credibility in a way that did not draw too much attention or make the promotion feel threatened enough to change their plans. He was playing a long game. And the Royal Rumble was the payoff of that long game, and it was one of the most spectacular payoffs in the history of this business. There is also the matter of the crowd, because the reaction from the live audience at the Royal Rumble is something that absolutely cannot be ignored when analyzing what happened on that night. When Obafemi entered that match, the crowd was loud. They were excited. They knew what they were getting. But when Obafemi began to take apart the Vision, when the crowd realized exactly what was happening, when the collective understanding dawned on everyone in that arena that they were witnessing something truly historic, the noise level went to a place that most people in that building had never heard before. It was electric. It was visceral. It was the kind of raw, unfiltered, organic reaction that cannot be manufactured, cannot be scripted, and cannot be replicated under any other circumstances. The crowd was on their feet. The crowd was screaming. The crowd was chanting Obafemi's name with an intensity and a passion that told the entire business watching at home exactly how much this moment meant to the fans. And in professional wrestling, the fans are everything. The fans are the reason this business exists. The fans are the reason anyone in that locker room gets a paycheck. And when the fans react the way they reacted to Obafemi at the Royal Rumble, when they embrace someone with that kind of energy and that kind of emotion, it is a signal to everyone making decisions behind the scenes that they have found something special. They have found someone that the audience is willing to follow, willing to invest in, willing to get behind with everything they have. And you do not ignore a signal like that. At least, you should not ignore a signal like that. Now, let us address the elephant in the room, because there are people out there right now, people on social media, people in comment sections, people on forums, who are arguing that what happened at the Royal Rumble was wrong. They are arguing that Obafemi should not have been given this opportunity. They are arguing that the Vision should have won. They are arguing that the promotion made a mistake by putting Obafemi in a position to do what he did. And to those people, I want to say something, and I want you to listen very carefully. You are entitled to your opinion. You are entitled to be upset. You are entitled to disagree with the creative decisions that were made. But you are not entitled to say that what Obafemi did was wrong, because it was not wrong. It was bold. It was shocking. It was unexpected. It was the kind of decision that separates the promotions that are willing to take risks from the promotions that are content to play it safe forever. And in a business that lives and dies by its ability to surprise people, to make them feel something, to give them a moment they will never forget, sometimes the riskiest decision is the right decision. And the Royal Rumble proved that. The reaction from the crowd proved that. The social media explosion that followed the event proved that. Obafemi destroying the vision was not a mistake. It was a masterpiece. It was the kind of storytelling that reminds everyone why professional wrestling is one of the most compelling forms of entertainment on the planet. Let us also consider what this means for the upcoming main event picture, because the Royal Rumble is not just a match in isolation. The Royal Rumble is the starting gun for the road to the biggest show of the year, and the way that road is now shaping up is going to be one of the most watched, most anticipated storylines in recent memory. Before the Royal Rumble, the path was clear. The Vision was going to win, he was going to call out the current champion, and the biggest show of the year was going to feature the match that everyone had been expecting. Simple, clean, predictable. But now that Obafemi has inserted himself into the picture in the most dramatic way possible, everything is up in the air. What does this mean for the Vision? Does he get a rematch? Does he have to earn his way back to the top? Is his run over, or is this just a temporary setback on a much longer journey? And what does this mean for Obafemi? Is he the next challenger for the championship? Is he on a collision course with someone else entirely? What story is going to be told between now and the biggest show of the year, and how is the aftermath of the Royal Rumble going to shape that story? These are the questions that everyone is asking right now. These are the questions that are driving the conversation across every single platform and every single channel that covers this business. And the answers to those questions are going to determine whether the Royal Rumble was truly a turning point or just a blip on the radar. But based on everything that happened on that night, based on the way Obafemi carried himself, based on the reaction he received, and based on the sheer magnitude of what he accomplished, my money is on this being a turning point. My money is on Obafemi being the future. And my money is on the road to the biggest show of the year being one of the most exciting, most compelling, most unpredictable stretches of television this business has produced in a very long time. There is one more thing that needs to be said, and it is something that a lot of people are glossing over in their coverage of the Royal Rumble, but it is something that I think is absolutely critical to understanding the full scope of what happened. And that is the fact that Obafemi did not just win. He won in a way that made everyone watching him believe. He won in a way that made the crowd fall in love with him. He won in a way that established him not just as a threat, but as a genuine, legitimate force of nature. Because there is a difference, and it is a huge difference, between winning a match and winning a crowd. You can win a match by getting lucky. You can win a match because of a fluke. You can win a match because of interference or shenanigans or some kind of controversial finish that leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth. But Obafemi did not win any of those ways. He won clean. He won convincingly. He won by going out there and being, in that moment, simply the better man. He won by proving, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that he belonged in that ring, that he belonged at the top of the card, and that he was more than capable of taking on and defeating the biggest names in the business. And that kind of win, that kind of performance, that kind of night is the stuff that legendary careers are made of. When people look back on the career of Obafemi years from now, they are going to point to the Royal Rumble as the night that everything changed. The night that this man went from being a promising talent to being something else entirely. The night that the entire landscape of the business shifted, and Obafemi was right at the center of that shift, right at the eye of the storm, right exactly where he wanted to be. And here is the thing that makes all of this even more fascinating, even more compelling, even more worth paying attention to going forward. Obafemi is not done. He is not sitting back and enjoying the moment. He is not content to ride high on the praise and the attention and the social media buzz that the Royal Rumble generated for him. Obafemi has made it very clear, through his actions and through his words, that the Royal Rumble was not the destination. It was the starting point. It was the beginning of something much larger, much more ambitious, and much more dangerous than anything he had shown up to that point. He entered the Royal Rumble as a rising star. He left the Royal Rumble as a force to be reckoned with. And everything that comes next, everything that is about to unfold in the weeks and months ahead, is going to be shaped by the momentum, the credibility, and the sheer unstoppable energy that Obafemi generated on that night. The business is on notice. The locker room is on notice. The fans are on notice. Obafemi has arrived. And he is not leaving anytime soon. Now I need you to think about something for a second. Think about all the times you have watched a Royal Rumble match and felt genuinely shocked by the outcome. Think about all the times you have been sitting in your living room, watching a match unfold, and had that moment, that singular, gut punch moment where you could not believe what you had just seen. Those moments are rare. They are incredibly rare. In a business that has been running pay-per-view events for decades, in a business that has produced thousands upon thousands of matches, the truly shocking moments, the moments that leave you speechless, the moments that make you immediately grab your phone and start texting every person you know to tell them what just happened, those moments can be counted on one hand, maybe two. And what happened at the Royal Rumble, what Obafemi did to the Vision, belongs in that conversation. It belongs on that list. It is one of those moments. And the fact that it happened at the Royal Rumble, one of the most watched and most anticipated events of the year, makes it even more significant, even more impactful, even more likely to be remembered and talked about for years to come. But let us not get so caught up in the emotion of the moment that we fail to appreciate the bigger picture of what this means for the business as a whole. Because the truth is, what Femi proved at the Royal Rumble goes beyond just one match and one elimination. What he proved is that this business still has the ability to create genuine surprises, genuine moments, genuine shocks that remind people exactly why professional wrestling is worth watching. In an era where so much of the product is predictable, where so many of the outcomes feel predetermined, where so many of the storylines feel recycled and formulaic, the Royal Rumble gave us something that no amount of planning or scripting or careful booking could have manufactured. It gave us a moment of pure, authentic, unpredictable brilliance. And Femi was the architect of that moment. He was the man who made it happen. And regardless of where his career goes from here, regardless of what storyline he finds himself involved in next, regardless of what happens on the road to the biggest show of the year, Femi has cemented his place in the conversation. He has earned his spot in the main event picture. And he has given every single person who is watching at the Royal Rumble something that they are going to carry with them for a very long time. A memory. A moment. A night that changed everything. Let us also take a moment to appreciate the craft here, because beneath all the emotion, beneath all the shock and awe and the spectacle of the moment, there is a tremendous amount of skill and athletic ability and professional expertise that went into what Femi delivered at the Royal Rumble. This was not just a guy getting lucky in a chaotic multi-man match. This was a man who went in with a game plan, who executed that game plan flawlessly, who adapted on the fly when things did not go exactly as planned, and who ultimately delivered a performance that was, from a pure wrestling standpoint, one of the most impressive performances in a Royal Rumble match in recent memory. The way Femi carried himself throughout that match, the way he conserved his energy in the early portions so that he would have everything he needed when the moment came, the way he strategically positioned himself in relation to the Vision before their confrontation, the way he executed every single move and strike and throw with precision and power, all of that speaks to a level of preparation and ability that deserves to be recognized and appreciated. This was not a fluke. This was not a right place right time situation. This was the result of months and months of hard work, dedication, and an unwavering commitment to being the best version of himself when the biggest moment of his career came knocking at his door. And he answered that knock with everything he had. There is also something to be said about what this moment means for the fans, because at the end of the day, professional wrestling is an entertainment business, and the fans are the reason that business exists. And for the fans who watched the Royal Rumble, for the fans who sat in that arena and witnessed what happened in person, for the fans who watched from their homes and their bars and their living rooms, this was a gift. This was the kind of moment that reminds you why you got into this business in the first place, why you started watching wrestling, why you stayed invested in this form of entertainment even when other people around you did not understand the appeal. The Royal Rumble gave you a moment. It gave you something to feel. It gave you something to talk about, something to argue about, something to think about. And in a world where entertainment options are endless, in a world where your attention is being pulled in a million different directions at all times, the ability to create a moment that cuts through all of that noise and makes you stop and pay attention and feel something real, that is invaluable. That is the kind of moment that the fans will remember long after they have forgotten most of the other matches and most of the other storylines from this time period. Femi gave them that. And whether you are a fan of Femi or you are a fan of the Vision or you are just a casual viewer who happens to have been watching the Royal Rumble on that night, you have to acknowledge that what happened was special. It was genuinely, undeniably special. So where does this leave us? Where does this leave Femi? Where does this leave the Vision? Where does this leave the business as a whole? The honest answer is that we are standing at the beginning of a very exciting, very unpredictable, very compelling chapter in the story of professional wrestling. The Royal Rumble was the catalyst. It was the event that set everything into motion. And now, the question is not whether Femi will continue to rise. The question is how far he will go. How far is he willing to push himself? How far is the business willing to let him go? What obstacles are going to be placed in his path, and how is he going to overcome them? What is going to happen between now and the biggest show of the year? What stories are going to be told? What matches are going to be made? These are the questions that are driving the conversation right now, and these are the questions that are going to keep fans tuned in, invested, and emotionally connected to what is unfolding over the next few weeks and months. For the Vision, the road ahead is going to be a difficult one. He has been brought down from what appeared to be an untouchable position, and rebuilding from that kind of fall takes time, patience, and very smart storytelling. The Vision is talented enough to make that comeback. He has the ability, he has the charisma, he has the tools to reinvent himself and find a new way to connect with the audience. But it is going to require a different approach than the one that was taken before the Royal Rumble. The machine cannot simply protect him and elevate him and pretend that what happened did not happen. The fans are too smart for that. They saw what they saw. They felt what they felt. And any attempt to paper over the reality of what Femi did at the Royal Rumble is going to ring hollow and is going to erode the credibility of the entire product. The Vision needs to earn his way back. He needs to go through a journey. He needs to prove that he can come back from adversity, that he can face defeat and emerge stronger and more compelling on the other side. And if the business lets him do that, if the storytelling is there to support it, the vision can absolutely come back. But it is going to take time. And in the meantime, Femi is the man. And that is really the bottom line here, is it not? Femi is the man. After the Royal Rumble, after what happened on that night, there is simply no other way to look at it. He walked in, he faced the biggest test of his career, and he passed it with flying colors. He did not just survive the Royal Rumble. He conquered it. He did not just beat the vision. He destroyed him. He did not just make a statement. He made the statement of the year, possibly the statement of the decade. And now, the entire business is going to have to reckon with the fact that Femi is here, he is here to stay, and he is coming for everything. So the next time someone asks you what happened at the Royal Rumble, the next time someone brings up Femi and the vision and wants to have a conversation about that night, remember this. Remember the moment Femi walked out from behind that curtain. Remember the silence. Remember the intent in his eyes. Remember the way he walked straight toward the vision without a shred of fear or hesitation. Remember the way he took that man apart, piece by piece, move by move, strike by strike. Remember the way he lifted the vision over the top rope and threw him out of the ring and ended everything that the vision had been building toward for months. Remember the way the crowd exploded. Remember the way the entire arena came to life in a way that reminded everyone watching exactly what this business is capable of when it is at its absolute best. Remember Femi, because Femi is the future. And the Royal Rumble was just the beginning. If you have made it this far, if you have watched this entire video, if you have followed along through every single second of this breakdown, then you already understand the magnitude of what happened at the Royal Rumble. You already understand why this is one of the most significant moments in professional wrestling in recent memory. You already understand why Femi is going to be one of the most important names in this business for years to come. And you already understand why the road ahead, the road from the Royal Rumble to the biggest show of the year and beyond, is going to be one of the most compelling, most unpredictable, and most exciting stretches of professional wrestling that we have seen in a very long time. So if this video gave you something to think about, if it gave you something to feel, if it gave you something to talk about with your friends, then do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a comment down below and let me know what you think. Do you think Femi deserved this moment? Do you think the vision is finished? Do you think this is the best Royal Rumble moment of the year, or even of the decade? I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think. And if you think this video was worth your time, share it with someone who needs to see it. Because this story is just getting started, and we are all going to be watching very closely to see how it unfolds. Until next time, stay tuned, stay watching, and never ever forget what Femi did at the Royal Rumble.